Hi, I'm Caitlin and welcome to Kate's In. If this is your first time seeing a video from me, then thank you for visiting my channel. I make videos about conscious and alternative living, travel, minimalism, and an all-around documentation of my journey. If you're a subscriber, then thank you so much for your support. This video is going to be a little bit different than anything I've made before, but it's one I'm really excited for nonetheless. So, you may know me from the days when I lived in my SUV during my college years, or when I first backpacked Thailand solo, but now I'm living here in Thailand for a little while, settled down, and you might hear a lot of background noise. There's chickens and cows, and my neighbor is welding, I think, and another neighbor is woodworking, so it may get a little bit loud, but hopefully we can get the video done, get to the point. But I'm living here in Thailand now, and I'm really excited to be able to be in a space where I can share with you and start to rebuild this community. Today I'm here to talk about what I refer to as habitual mindfulness, or making mindfulness a habit. If you clicked on this video, you've likely realized that some areas of your life are lacking mindful attention, or you already have a daily mindfulness practice that you want to tend to. It could also be that you find yourself highly motivated to do the things that better your life, like exercise or meditate or do the dishes before they pile up. But these types of habits only last for a short amount of time, maybe a few days or a few weeks or even a few months, before mindfulness starts to slip out of your view and self-defeating habits start to take their place. It could also be that you're viewing this during a time where you're locked down in your house, as much of the world is right now, and you have time and space to tend to some of those things that you want to carry back over into life whenever you are back out in the world. About a year ago, I found myself in a pattern of unmotivated thoughts and actions. I had a bit of a slip from mindfulness. The walls around me were still stable, but I knew if I didn't start rebuilding my foundation, they were going to crumble. This wasn't a feeling that I hadn't felt before, nor was this the first time I had to pull myself out of such a feeling. So it occurred to me that it wasn't enough to just implement the change, as I had done that plenty of times before, but it was time for me to reform my thinking around mindfulness and make it a habit. In this time, I felt that it was stressful for me to do things that were mindful. It was stressful for me to get on my yoga mat, or it was stressful for me to pick myself up because life and hormones were telling me stay down. So I created a practice for myself that ensured that I practiced mindfulness for at least an hour out of the day, spread out throughout the things that I deemed important for my life. Essentially, this practice consisted of a checklist of originally 12 things that I would do 5 minutes each. Start a timer, 5 minutes, get it done, mark it off the checklist. At the end of the day, those 5 minutes have added up into an hour of mindful practice. Over time, I started to notice that I wasn't just doing them for 5 minutes. Some of them would carry over a little longer, till eventually now my daily life is doing these things all day long. It may sound simple, and it kind of is, but I want to dive into it and get out all the little kinks and explain how this practice came to help me so much, and how it came to help my partner so much and other people in my life who I've shared it with. So today I'm going to share it with you in hopes that it can better your life, or it can be the tool that you can use to step into that next level that you're trying to step into. We're going to break down the video today into what mindfulness is and what making it a habit means, how to create your mindfulness practice specifically for yourself, how to use that practice in a way that will benefit you the most, and some examples from my practice as well. So let's get into it. So what is mindfulness? You may have a definition of mindfulness that someone has taught you, or you may have a definition of mindfulness that is personal for yourself. But just so we can kind of be on the same page here, essentially mindfulness is the act of doing something intentionally. It means being aware and conscious of what you're doing. And again, you may be like, that's simple. If I'm doing something, then I know what I'm doing. But that's not always the case. So I want to share with you an experience that often comes to mind for me when I'm asking myself, am I living mindfully? Am I acting mindfully? Is this action that I'm doing with mindfulness? When I first started studying Buddhist meditation, I studied with a monk who was teaching me walking meditation. And I was like, oh yeah, it's just meditation, but you walk. And he was like, yeah, but I also practice this meditation with another nun. And I remember she told me, that's not how you walk. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, you look stiff. You know that you're walking, but you're not mindful of your walking. And I was like, That's the same thing though. That doesn't make sense. The walking meditation he taught me was first to, and you can try this right now if you want to, was first to walk from one end of, we were on a little balcony, but walk from one end of the room to the other end of the room and back. And I was like, okay, I did that. Then he asked me to do it again, but this time concentrate on each time my foot hit the ground. So I did that and I came back and he was like, okay, now this time concentrate on every time your foot is lifting and falling, lifting and falling, lifting and falling. Did that back and forth. Then he was like, okay, this time concentrate on when your heel is lifting, your foot is rising, and your foot is falling again. Rising, lifting, falling. Rising, lifting, falling. Rising, lifting, falling. Did that back and forth. And I was like, okay, I see what he's on to now. Then he was like, okay, now concentrate on your heel is lifting, your foot is lifting, your foot is swinging, your foot is falling, and your foot is touching the floor again. Dun, 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 dun. Over and over again, back and forth, until I was mindful of how my body was moving, until I was mindful of how taking a step required so much, but so little. So maybe this can help you to think about if you're acting mindfully, if you are doing things unconsciously, if you're doing things without paying attention, and how to instead take something that may seem really simple or may seem mundane or something you would normally do in the day and bring mindfulness to it. So what does it mean to make mindfulness a habit? Humans, other animals, the earth, life itself is habitual. We operate off of repeated behaviors. So the goal here is to make those repeated behaviors centered around mindfulness. This is especially important when we don't have enough time or we have plenty of time, like many of us do right now. When we don't have enough time, it often seems like there isn't space to do the mindful things that we know we need to do. So maybe we're going to a job or maybe we're going to school and it takes up most of our time and we feel like there's not an hour in my day to spare towards mindfulness. But if we start to make mindfulness a habit when we do have time, it's easier to slip that mindfulness in and eventually let it spill over into other areas of life. Also, when we have plenty of time, it's good to know that because mindfulness is a habit, because we are thinking mindfully, because we are operating mindfully with those repeated behaviors, that the time we have to spare, that we spend mindfully, that we don't spend unconsciously, that we don't spend feeling unmotivated, that we spend doing the things we know will better our life. So essentially what it means to make mindfulness a habit is to make mindfulness your daily life, for these habits of mindfulness to start to spill over into daily life, to start to spill over into the way you communicate with people, the way you communicate with yourself, the way you operate in daily life, not just on your yoga mat, not just when you're sitting in meditation, not just when you have that little on switch flipped on when you have time, for it to become part of who you are. Part of your self-inventory is to act and to think mindfully. And to be able to do this in the light and the dark, to be able to do this when things are really hard and you need to pull yourself out of somewhere, and to be able to do this when things are really light and you have plenty of time and things are really exciting and it's fun to do all of these things, but to find a balance between the two of those. So that mindfulness is always the center. Mindfulness is always where you come back to. So let's talk about how to create your own practice. When I was creating this practice for myself, it made sense for me to split up my human wellness into 3 aspects. So physical, mental, and spiritual. Physical being the body, things that I can see and feel, the tangible world. Mental being my mind, my thoughts, and my emotions. And spiritual being everything else, the same stuff that is in me, that is in the universe, the connection to higher power, the things that give you little tingles in your body, whether that be personal or organized religion, whatever that may be, that spiritual aspect of humans that is undeniable. These are the things that, when in balance, allow humans to operate optimally. So then the task is to find the actions you can do to maintain these. And this is what your checklist will be. And most of them will probably begin to overlap, which is a good thing. So with mindfulness, it is not a one-size-fits-all type of situation. So it's important to talk about how to use this practice in a way that will benefit you the most. I spoke briefly on it already, but my checklist began with 1 hour out of my day. So 12 things that could be done for 5 minutes each. Now my checklist does not have 12 things, So I believe it has 10 or 11, and most of the time I don't track if it's exactly 5 minutes because I generally do more than 5 minutes. But when I first started, it was really, really good for me to have those 12 things, 5 minutes, sometimes start a timer whenever I really didn't feel like doing something on my list for 5 minutes to ensure that I did it and to ensure that that 60 minutes added up, and when I laid down in bed at night, I could say I was mindful for an hour of my day, because being mindful for an hour of my day was not something that was happening. Start smaller if you want, start larger if you want. 5 minutes is just a nice base to get that 1 hour. That 1 hour sounds really good to our human brain. It just seems like a decent amount of time. So if you want, start with 6 things that you do for 5 minutes so that it's 30 minutes of your day. Whatever will get you started, do it, and know that your practice will evolve. It will constantly evolve. You can constantly change it. You can add, you can take away, you can do what you need to do. It is a personal practice. With that being said, some days will be really difficult and it will be 11 at night and you haven't done anything on your list. And some days you're going to be like, I'm gonna go to bed and take the L for today. And some days you're gonna be like, no, I said I was gonna do this. Let me just crank out this hour. Let me just crank out this 30 minutes. Let me set my timer for 5 minutes and do each one of them. So it's important in this practice to hold yourself accountable, to know that you're doing this for you. You're doing this for your betterment. The more you put into it, the more you're gonna get out of it. But the days that you don't have the energy to put into it, the days that you need to rest, it is okay to rest. Just always keep it in the back of your mind that if you make the decision to start this practice, you're doing it for you. You started it because you knew you were slipping from mindfulness, and you know you want to be more mindful, or you know you operate better when you are thinking more mindfully. So keep that in mind whenever it is 11 o'clock at night, or you have a 5-minute break at work and you'd much rather scroll through Instagram or watch a YouTube video or whatever it may be. Instead, maybe take that 5 minutes to do something from your list, and then evaluate how that makes you feel. Evaluate how it feels to not do it and how it feels to do it, and see how that is. This practice is to create motivation, so there's not always going to be motivation pre-existing. It's to create good habits. So when you first start, those habits probably aren't going to be there, and it's going to be a little difficult to get in the groove, but it all comes down to self-responsibility. I want to share with you a reading that I came across, well, actually my partner showed to me, from Thich Nhat Hanh, that goes like this. To begin anew is to look deeply and honestly at ourselves, our past actions, speech, and thoughts, and to create a fresh beginning within ourselves and in our relationship with others. We can begin anew at the last moment of the day and even at the last moment of our life. In one day and 24 hours, you have hundreds of chances to begin anew. So, that being said, if one day you slip a little and you don't get it done, or you feel like it's the end of the day and you haven't done the things on your list, you always, always, always have the ability to start fresh. Always. Place your checklist where it is visible. Place it in your line of vision. We have ours hanging on a DIY whiteboard I made from taking a piece of cardboard and putting a piece of laminate paper over top. And then we wrote on it with permanent marker, and now we have a dry erase marker that we use to dot when we've done things throughout the day in 2 different colors because we're 2 people. But it's hanging in our kitchen where we see it all day long. Every time we walk in the kitchen, it's right there. When we're traveling, sometimes we have it hanging in our hotel room. Sometimes we have it laying on a desk. You can do it on your phone, although I wouldn't really recommend that one if you have another option, because it's very easy to get sucked into your phone once you unlock it, and we all know that. You can put it in a notebook and make a check beside it whenever you're done and erase it the next day, whatever works for you, but just make sure it's in your line of vision and you have somewhere to visualize your list. Don't try to just keep it in your mind and keep track of what you've done. Have somewhere where you can physically check it off and visualize that you've done it. If you can, keep these habits that you're creating for yourself, keep these things on your checklist spread out throughout the day. So when you realize you have 5 minutes, or when you realize you don't have anything to do now, what should I do? Maybe turn to your list and do something from your list. This will help create the habit of being mindful all throughout the day, rather than I'm only mindful first thing in the morning when I do my morning ritual, which is good, which sets the tone for the day, but you know. Or I'm only mindful whenever it's almost time to go to bed, and this is when I do my little thing. You can still have your nighttime routine, you can still have your morning routine of mindfulness, but it's really important when you're trying to create a habit to spread this out throughout the day, so that mindfulness is what you train your brain to go back to all day long, all week long, all month long, all year long. You may be thinking to yourself, I work a 40-hour work week, 40-hour plus work week. I'm a college student and I have this and this and this to do. If you break down your 24 hours in your day, sometimes it's a lot easier than you think to take 5 minutes to yourself to do what you need to do. I understand that I'm in a space where I can make decisions I want all day long, and I understand that I have not always been there. I was a college student. I was working 40 hours a week. I was living in a stressful environment. I understand it seems a lot harder to do that when you're in those cases. But if you take a second to think about how many times you've spent at least 5 minutes or more on your phone, how many times you spent at least 5 minutes or more dazing off into nothing, how many times you've spent at least 5 minutes or more doing self-defeating habits, try to replace those with 5 minutes from something from your list. So now I want to share some examples from my practice. If you want to use some of these examples, please, please, please do. If you realize these pertain to you, if you're not really sure where to start with your list and you want to just get it going and use my list as a template, please do that. But eventually you should cater the practice to yourself. So here's my list. The list is not in a particular order. I do them in whatever way they come to me throughout the day. So first, yoga. Yoga obviously appeals to the mind, the body, and the spiritual self. But for me to have yoga on my list is to get my body moving, is to get the stagnant energy going throughout the day whenever I can feel it resting there. It allows me time to focus on my breath, to release tension, to become aware of tension and where the tension is coming from. It allows me to quiet my mind, bring awareness to my body, and to connect with myself and provide space for growth. Yoga has been a part of my life for the past 7 years and is something I hold very dear to myself and is a practice that I feel firm in and that I'm constantly growing in. But I understand it's very intimidating to get started, as it was very intimidating for me as well. If yoga is something that you know can be beneficial for you, but you're not really sure how to get going or you have some intimidation around it, just remember, yoga is not about flexibility. Yoga is not about getting into a crazy new pose. Sometimes it is, but yoga is not about how much you can bend your body. Stiffness in the body is stiffness in the mind. Yoga is about finding your tensions, releasing them, moving through your body. Yoga is about much more than just stretching or strength. So remember that. Number 2 is meditate. Meditation allows me to find some peace in my day, to find some quieted thoughts, again to return to my breath. Usually it's a space for me to mindfully rest and do nothing. And meditation comes in an infinite amount of forms. So again, meditation is often something that people are intimidated by because they don't want to sit with their thoughts, or they think you must sit cross-legged on the floor and and it's not like that, I promise. It can be if that's what works for you, but meditation can be simply focusing on your breath, repeating affirmations, sweeping the floor for 5 minutes, and just doing that, just concentrating on your breath, concentrating on walking. Meditation just means to focus, to calm down, to return to center. Meditation can be just about anything. So I really encourage you to dig into the different types of meditation and find what works for you. I personally really like Insight Timer. You can look through a bunch of different meditations for certain things. Some days I like to just sit in silence, but some days it's nice to have a guided practice if there's something specific that my thoughts are circling around that day. Or if I just want some nice background music to help bring me into calmness, or some nice sounds of nature to help bring me into calmness, I often use Insight Timer or something like that. Number 3 is exercise. This one is very, very important for me. When I'm not exercising, when I'm not getting my body moving, when I'm not getting heated up, when I'm not getting a little sweaty, my body tends to be stiff, my body tends to be lethargic. So it's important for me to keep my body moving every single day if I can. Some days that's really, really intense movement. It's sweating, it's cardio, it's jumping around, it's strength training. And some days it's just dancing. Some days it's walking. Some days it's very minimal effort. But the goal is just to get your body moving. There's many obvious benefits of exercise, like strength and heart health, mobility, energy levels, all of these types of things. But again, exercise, as all of them do, overlaps with everything. It overlaps with physical, mental, and spiritual. Number 3 is journal. It's important for me to get my thoughts out into the physical, into the tangible world, to write them down and be able to separate them from being only inside of my mind. Whether I'm working with really complex ideas or really simple things throughout my day, it's important for me to have a safe, personal space to be able to express these without any judgment, without any fear, just me and my book. No one else is going to see it unless I want them to. This is no one else's time but mine to be with my thoughts. And this leads to more self-understanding. This leads to more self-awareness. This is the time of the day where I get to decompress and figure out what's going on in there that is not always that easy for me to tap into throughout the day because of other distractions. Number 4 is to read, to wake up the brain, to get educated, to learn, to find new ideas, to be inspired by others' ideas, to stay informed and receive guidance, to expand the vocabulary. There are so many benefits to reading. And if you're not already doing so, incorporating reading into your practice, whether it's reading spiritually informed books, whether it's reading self-help books, whether it's reading grocery list, just start reading. I promise it will change the way your brain starts to maneuver. Often if you went to a normal institutionalized school, you had to read and you were told when to read and what to read and how much of it and how you were supposed to understand it. So a lot of us have a bad relationship with reading, myself included. I oftentimes find myself scanning, and then I'm like, what did I just read? Because I used to read in college and in high school to just get it done, to just soak up the information so I could pass the test. We probably all know this feeling. So if this is something that you are like, yeah, me too, maybe take some time to start reading something that you want to read, that just you have chosen to read, that just you want to dive into. Don't set a time limit on how long it's going to take you to read the book. Nothing. Set your timer for 5 minutes, sit down and just read. And most likely you're going to want to read longer than your 5 minutes. Number 6 is create. Every human is creative. Do not let anyone tell you that there is some group of people in this world who are the creatives. Every human has the desire to create. Every human has the desire to express themselves in a way that is not just common speech. So whatever that is for you, whether it is using words, whether it is poetry, whether it's drawing, whether it is stacking some rocks on top of each other, every day it is a really nice challenge to help yourself to get in the mindset of creating, making something with your hands, making something with your body, making something, period. Braid your hair, do anything. There's so many ways you can create to get that creative expression out. Sorry, it is really hot today. It's 102 and the mosquitoes and other bugs are out, so bear with me. Creation can be for pleasure, creation can be to relax, creation can be to feed that sense of accomplishment that we humans really like. It can be that you start on something and you wait weeks and weeks and weeks and then you've just created something great, or it can be that you just take a page and scribble all over it, or you just sketch the first thing that comes to your brain, or you take some paint and put it all over your hands and rub it all over a piece of paper. It can be anything. Just get that creative expression out, and as you do it, more and more will come to you. You will desire to create. Those thoughts of, I'm not an artist, or I don't know how to create, or the common sentence, I can't draw, or I'm not artistic. We all are. Whatever this concept of art and being artistic is you have in your brain, it could be a good idea to drop it, because as humans, we want to create. We want to put a bunch of things together and make them into some food. We want to put a bunch of things together and show them to someone so that they can feel joy, or so that they can feel whatever emotion we were feeling when we created it. We like to do that as humans, and it's okay to do that even if it's not pretty. Number 7 is time with nature. This one is very, very, very important for me. It's important for all of us to reconnect with where we came from. In society, we are very much in a space of thinking we need to push ourselves away. It is wrong to be animalistic. It is wrong to be primal. It is wrong to be dirty. And taking time to reconnect with the earth, to get our hands in the earth, to get our feet in the earth, to spend time appreciating, having gratitude for the earth that made us, that supports us, that holds us every day, is important. Not only for our spiritual, but for physical and emotional as well. Number 8 is self-care. Self-care comes in so many different ways, and you likely already have some sort of self-care regimen that you do, whether that's brushing your teeth, washing your face, washing your hair, whatever it may be. And bringing mindfulness to it can make you feel so much better. So it doesn't always have to be putting on a face mask, but for me, sometimes it is putting on a face mask, making my cup of tea, doing a little self-massage. Some days it's just taking a shower and being conscious that I am in the shower, washing my body, taking care of myself. When I speak about self-care here, I generally, for myself, I'm speaking physical, to take care of my body, because so many of the other things on my list are to take care of my mind. But again, they overlap, and as you take care of your body, your mind and your spiritual aspects will be taken care of as well. Number 9 is to clean and organize my space. Creatures, humans included, innately organize their space. If you look at just about any animal in nature, they have a certain way that they like to live, whether they dig a hole in the ground, whether they build a nest. They have a certain way that they organize to live, because it's nice to have a place where you feel safe, where you feel there is not clutter, where you feel there are not distractions, things you need to deal with. It is really nice to take time every day to clean and organize your space, whether that means cleaning for your health, getting dust away, getting bacteria away, whether that means really cleaning, or whether it means just organizing, picking things up, having everything be put into a certain space so that when you lay down in bed at night, there are not things to draw your attention, to distract you from being able to relax. And a lot of people like to say that they like messy environments. Messy environments work for them. But even if you have a mess environment, it is nice to be able to organize that messy environment. If you have lots of things all over your walls, or you have lots of little trinkets, you can have all of those. You can have lots of things in your environment, but having them organized so that you don't have to think about them, so that you don't feel there's something you haven't accomplished, is really helpful for the mind. Number 10 on my list is to express to each other, because I have a partner who I live with pretty much all of the time. It's important for us to come back to this every day and keep the channels of communication open, because we're in such close proximity. We need to be able to understand what's going on with each other so that there's not conflict arising, so that we know where we are, so that our love can grow deeper. If this is not something that is prominent in your life, you can use this as a time to take care of other parts of your social health. So contact one of your friends and check on them. Contact one of your friends and ask if you can share what you need to share. Even if you consider yourself an introvert, even if you consider yourself someone who is not very active in the social scene, as I feel I am, you can still take this time to understand that it is important to have community. It is important to interact with other humans. And number 11 for me is ritual. This one is a little bit hard to explain, and when I first added it to my list, I told my partner that I was going to add it, and he was like, well, I'm not going to do that one because that doesn't really make sense to me, which is fine. But he ended up deciding that he wants to, because this is the one that specifically targets the spiritual aspect. When I say ritual, I just mean taking time to mindfully connect with my spirituality, whether that is prayer, connecting to my ancestors, cleaning and organizing and redoing my altar. Sometimes it is drawing a card from an oracle deck. Sometimes it is lighting candles. Sometimes it's lighting incense. It's just taking time to feel those tingles in my body, to pay mind to them, and to respect them. It's a time that I take for myself to feel like I'm operating at my highest vibration, that I'm really tending to my spiritual needs, whatever that may be for the day. At the moment, I don't have a 12th thing on my list because, as I said, the list is ever evolving. It is ever changing as I am evolving, as I'm changing and growing. I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope you feel equipped to create your own practice of mindfulness. I hope you feel excited and motivated to make mindfulness a habit, to operate and move through your life mindfully, because it makes you feel good. Because when we feel good, we can help others feel good. When we are centered, we can help others feel centered. It is a constant chain reaction. Okay, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below or shoot me a message on Instagram. I reply to all of them when I can. Also, please use the comment section as a forum. If you have ideas you want to add to this, if you want to talk to this community here on YouTube about how this is working for you, if you start this practice and you want to share what it has done for you, please use the comments below to talk with each other. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for letting me share. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate you all. Peace.